Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and broadcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. Good to see you, David. What's new?
Hey, Jesse, good to see you as well. It's been a good week. Took a day off, spent some time with my daughter who's in for spring break. So that's nice. It's been a nice week.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. That's amazing. And it's about to get a little more amazing because today on Deconstructing Data, we're thrilled to welcome on Jacqueline Woods. She's the Chief Marketing Officer at Teradata, and she has an incredible background. She's had senior roles at Fortune 500 companies, and her achievements are widely recognized, from being named among the top most successful business women making a difference in 2022. And that was by CIOviews.com, to being listed in the top 100 executive women in tech to watch in 2023. So we are very lucky to welcome on Jacqueline. I'm going to bring her in here. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi, Jesse. Hi, David. How are you?
We're great, Jacqueline. We really appreciate you joining us on the show today. And we're going to give you a chance to kick it off for us. Tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background, how you got to where you are today as CMO of Teradata, and a little bit about what Teradata is doing today for its customers.
Sure. I'll start with, I actually didn't start off in marketing. I actually started my career in finance and accounting, which is probably a little bit different for most marketers, but I've always liked numbers and data. But what I felt that I wasn't getting from that side of the business was my ability to really shape what was going on in the business. So I started in telecommunications in California. And that was right out of college. I was working for a company called GTE, which is now Verizon. And it was kind of your POTS, plain old telephone service. But really, that's where I think, developed a love for data and information, but really wanted to have a role in how do we get different types of technology to customers in a more compelling way. So I think I always had this intellectual curiosity around data, but when you're in finance, it was more talking about the results after everything happened. So I essentially went back to school. I got my MBA at the University of Southern California, the Marshall School of Business. And I just really went all out to get a marketing role. And I haven't looked back since that time. I joined my first technology company, which was Oracle, and that was a little over 20 years ago. And I just loved it. I love tech. I love the speed of it. I love everything that happens in technology and how fast the pace of the industry moves. And most important, I love what it means to people, and how it generally moves society forward. So I just have a real keen curiosity for how technology helps societies move forward, which I think that, coupled with, I started my career kind of in a numbers world, and my ability to then go to a technology place and really use those skills that I gained as a person who was in finance really has made me prepared for what I think is happening in this moment. And this is a moment where data and analytics and artificial intelligence are not only just prominent, they're just really, really important to every single industry that's out there, which brings me to Teradata. I love Teradata. I love what it stands for. I love the company, and I love what we do, data analytics, and really, we are the trusted AI company. So when I think about the history of Teradata and its ability to help companies manage their information, have a platform that they can use to do analysis and understand what are the next steps that they should be taking to make better business decisions, that is exactly where we are. And last but not least, I think what we say is that we believe people thrive when empowered with trusted information. And so our technology helps provide you with that trusted information so that you can just make better business decisions. So I think that sums up where I am in my career at this point.
That's awesome. Appreciate that and love the story. And you mentioned something a term that I haven't heard in a long time, POTS lines, which is like not a lot of people know about plain old telephone services.
That's correct.
And I
People
started
don't even have phone lines anymore, which is so funny. And I'm like, clearly you've never been in a storm and you've never had your electricity go out. And if your electricity goes out and you have like a lot of hours that it's out, for those of us on the East Coast, which happens, it hasn't happened a lot lately, but 5 or 6 years ago, it felt like it was happening what felt like every 6 weeks. And the electricity was out for like, I'm talking days. And so your wireless mobile connection may not be so sturdy for you, but guess what always works? POTS.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I'm living in Florida on the, in the Hurricane Alley here. And so, until just a few years ago, we had relied on that POTS line to save us, during hurricanes, but now I don't have one anymore. But for me, it reminds me of the days, early ISP days. One of my first businesses was an internet service provider in the Northeast, and that was like the thing. We had hundreds of these POTS lines going into the system and all that stuff, and it was just that's a funny term because it's fun to hear somebody say that because it brings back some fun memories. So, but anyway, now we'll get into sort of the real meat of what's going on in today's world, AI. And so one of the topics here being the AI era and trust in data. And you just mentioned in your opener about Teradata and how it's how you're looking at the customer and providing a service that allows them to trust in data. So tell us a little bit about your perspective here going forward, especially with respect to AI and how everything is becoming sort of AI related these days.
I really think there's nothing that's more important than trust in many things. Like even for people in your standard relationships, trust has to be a factor. And those relationships that are trusted are the ones you tend to act on, you tend to believe in, and you tend to kind of make your decisions based on that word trust, right? So when you think about data and you think about, are you talking to a customer and what are you saying? And can the customer trust the information that you're giving them? Can you make the right decisions? And can you trust that you're using the right data from your own, what I would call data stores within your organizations to get to that information to make the best decisions? And the reason that trust is so incredibly important is because it is the foundation pretty much of everything that we do as human beings, which is why I started with the term just trust in your relationships. So if you think about this speed and efficacy with which you work, if you trust someone, if I said to you, David, it's raining outside and you hadn't been outside all day, the fact that you trust me, immediately you'd get a coat and an umbrella. You wouldn't need to go to the window. You wouldn't need to double check. And so you would be able to essentially make a decision right away and then proceed on that decision because you were able to trust what I said because you have trust in me. When you think about data and analytics and you think about, do I have the right data? The right data is only a starting point. You only have the right data if you know that that data that you have is clean. That data has a lineage that you can trace back and know where the data is actually coming from. And therefore, because you know where it's coming from and you know what the foundation of that information is, then you can use it in your own algorithms, in your own calculations, because essentially it is trusted data, it is trusted information. Now, imagine if you have no idea where that data is coming from, and it doesn't even need to be nefarious, it can just be bad information. and that bad information is ingested into an algorithm that you have. And let's just say that algorithm is designed to send emails to customers, something kind of fairly, fairly innocent. I'm just sending some emails to a customer, and the way that the data was ingested made you send the wrong name to different customers. So instead of someone sending the email to George, the email says, "Hey, Tom." And it says, "Hey, Mary." That happens. We've all had that happen. The first thing that it does is you immediately think to yourself that that company isn't very trustworthy. That's a fairly innocent example. But imagine if it's something more complex. You're getting information and ingesting some information predicated on credit that you want to give someone a loan, but you've ingested bad information both about them and about maybe some of the other attributes that you use to make a decision on a loan. Imagine how those things can have widespread implications. So, the fact that you need to be able to trust data is paramount. Now, when you layer on AI to that, AI is simply an extension of machine learning and picking up patterns. So it's not that a computer is artificially intelligent. What it is that a computer is taking millions and millions of data points, trying to determine the patterns that it sees. Now, imagine if you're using your internal information inside your company along with some other information that, let's just say, it's not as trustworthy, and you put that together and you're trying to develop your own patterns on whether it's acquisition, whether it's on product innovation, whether it's on operational skill that you have within your business. Now, imagine that your pattern in your algorithm starts to be based on something that is incorrect or that the data is unclean, as I would call it. Those are all times that you would really have a situation that could scale out of control. It could escalate to something that you wouldn't want to have happen in your company. The first one, sending an email with the wrong name, who cares? Second one, credit patterns that may not optimize the loans that you could give. The third one could be something that could actually be something that hurts people, hurts groups of people, hurts groups of customers that you have or potential customers. All of these things are really things that you need to think about, particularly when you think about AI and trusted data.
Yeah, these are really good points, Jacqueline. You know, we've seen this happen already, right? I mean, you gave perfect examples. I've gotten those emails with the wrong name. I've gotten emails with, with wrong information. I think, things that I can obviously see were written by AI because they're trying to introduce themselves and say that, pretend that they know something about my company and what we do, but really what the AI came up with was something that was completely obscure and wrong. And so I'm reading this email and I'm going, this person or this, AI that wrote this is just trying to address me in some way, but they really hit the mark. Totally missed the mark. We've seen AI companies that have already gotten in trouble because the output of the data that's come from their platforms is incorrect, or it's data that came from some, website, but that information was correct, whatever it is. How do we fix this? Like, well, we have problems going forward in the sense that you need to be able to trust that data. I already know that there's platforms that I don't trust and that
Correct.
I might go on there and I might actually make a query just to see what it says. But now I have to go and I have to fact check what it says because I don't trust that what it comes back with is going to be correct. How do we solve this going forward? I mean, the garbage in, garbage out problem is a serious problem, but what's going to happen? How is anybody going to learn to trust a platform in this?
I think, yeah, I think it is a serious problem. I think it first starts with your own technology and your own data and information. Everyone has a responsibility to make sure that their data is right. At Teradata, we have a data lineage solution where you can trace back and make sure that you have accuracy around the lineage of the data so you know where it's coming from. And at each step, you're verifying whether that, information is trusted. So then you can kind of move to the next step and so on and so forth. Every company will have to not just take this seriously, but it must be, I think, the first thing that every company uses or thinks about in their approach as they use AI. It should have been part of the approach when they were using analytics, but maybe the stakes weren't as high. But now the stakes are a lot higher because you have machines that are learning patterns and they can learn bad patterns simply based on the bad information that's out there. I also think companies will need to have their own large language models. While you can, have Chat GPT rewrite a paragraph for you that you've written yourself, and you can say, make this pithier. I've tested that just as something that's very verbose, and you're like, I think this can be pithier, stick it in there, and it comes out with something that could be a little bit more succinct. And then you yourself have to say, does it sound like me? Are these words that I would use? Is this language that I would use? And you have to complement what you got out of something that's AI. I think people need to understand that that is how they will have to use AI. It's not a silver bullet or a one size fits all. It is something that you're going to have to invest in, really training it to understand the voice of your own company, train it in your own content, train it on the things that you know are trusted, and then use it for that purpose. The other models that are out there that, clearly, haven't have been built with just a lot of information that has been kind of roaming around on the internet, may not be as trustworthy. And I also think that the cost for what I would call more trusted or pristine data is going to be higher. I mean, it is expensive to do the work to make something, uh, make sure that you know where it's coming from. It's not, kind of what you see out there today, which are these things that are kind of, for all intents and purposes, almost free. That's not a pattern that's going to last forever. I think the more data that you have, the more important the characteristics around that data and how you use them in your company will determine what you're willing to pay for in terms of making sure that you have the right information to not have a reputational risk that you could have by not taking those steps. I think there is extraordinary reputational risk for not doing what I would call your due diligence, governance, and compliance around AI, particularly as companies begin to use it more broadly in their institutions.
That's a
Yeah.
great point.
Yeah, I agree. The whole idea of having different language models for different companies makes total sense. And I think you're right. I think that that's a path that we're trending towards. I know that from our perspective, the AI that we've developed is more around understanding consumer identity, and for that we had to train it on tons and tons of identity data, both good and bad, so that it would understand what's the difference between good identity data and what's bad identity data. And so I think that same thing will apply in a wide range of different industries and different types of companies as well, and different applications within those companies.
I think your point on training a model to see both, the things that, are good and going to benefit you, as well as understanding that you may need to have a kind of a digital twin or some type of synthetic model that looks at like things that are not good. Quite frankly, there are bad actors out there in the world. And I think we have to work really hard to try to model those behaviors that could be bad,
Hmm.
so that we can make sure that we are protecting the users of this type of information. So I think that's critical, and
Yeah,
I you
yeah,
guys are doing that.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we've done with respect to identifying, IDs that are linked to ad fraud, bots, click farms, all kinds of stuff. You have to, train it on what bad data looks like so that you can identify it and see it happening. So you got to do the same thing on the good side as you're doing on the bad side as well.
Yeah, definitely. And for both of you, really, on this next topic of human-centric data lineage, how do we get from where we are and, getting to what you were calling clean data, to having more human-centric data? And what does that even mean? You want to kick us off with that one, Jacqueline?
Sure. I think for everything we do, we have to put the people first in everything that we are doing, just as a society, right? We have to think about, how does this impact people, and is what we're doing impacting people for the good or for the betterment of mankind? I know that seems lofty, but it honestly is what I believe. I don't believe we should be doing anything that doesn't advance us as a society, because what would be the purpose of us doing it if it's not helping us to, um, have better food products, if it's not helping us to have cleaner water, if it's not helping us to have more efficient energy sources, if it's not helping us to have greater productivity, if it's not helping us to be better communities with each other, if it's not helping us to break down, barriers and prejudices and other things that we know are the ills of society, if we're not using, our data and our platform to do those things, then I don't know why we're doing it. So I really think, very, my personal opinion, this is not even the opinion of, like, this is not the quote Teradata opinion, this is a Jacqueline Woods opinion. I think that we have to really be very thoughtful about that as a premise. What is what we're doing, uh, and how is what we're doing really helping to elevate mankind, helping to elevate humankind? If someone doesn't like the fact that I didn't say female kind, but what are we really doing to help elevate us and move us forward? And when we put the, quote, human first, then I think that we will make better decisions. I think we will be more careful about doing things that could put, quote, children in harm's way inadvertently. We will do things that, we would not want to put, elders in harm's way inadvertently, or people that have different types of needs, that we would be using our data and our analytics to serve all those constituencies better. And really, we can do that, and I think most companies want to do that with whatever products that they are creating. So if in fact you happen to be a manufacturer of snacks, it doesn't mean that all snacks are bad. But if we know that, different types of, you know, oils or different types of sugars that we have used in the past are not as healthy for us, I think that they would want to put data and analytics to use to find out what are the other things that may have a similar taste that still taste good to someone, but could be a better product overall for that person's health. I think most companies want to do that. In general, I think most companies want to do that or should want to do that. And so when I think about, what is human centered, it is really thinking about, from the customer back, what does that mean, and how do you show up for your customers or your citizens if you're a government, or whatever constituency you may be serving? And so I do think if you start with that, then ultimately you're asking better questions when you're looking at your overall data lineage, heritage? Where is it coming from? What is it based on? And what are we learning from it? And what goals do we have around it to do the things that we believe will be better for our company and better for the constituents or consumers that we're serving?
That was really beautifully said. I loved how you opened it up, talking about if it doesn't make our water better or our communities better. I mean, I've never heard anyone, explain it that way. That was really great, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that for sure. And unfortunately, not everybody thinks the same way. And so there's,
True.
yeah, and so there's a lot of technology that is applied to, to doing the adverse, right? That's one of the reasons why we do some of the work that we do with respect to, ad fraud and things like that, where we're trying to help brands understand and get a feel for how can they reduce their ad spend that is being spent on fraudulent ads, because that's completely wasteful. And where does that waste go? It goes to the consumer. All that
Yeah.
additional cost is ultimately causing the increase of products to cost more. And when you're talking about billions and billions of dollars in ad fraud, that's something that we're really passionate about in our space is helping companies, combat that so that they, can keep their costs down.
And I think it's something that we should talk about more. I think all companies, whether you happen to be a bank or whether you happen to be a consumer packaged goods company or whatever your business is, there are quote bad people in the world or bad actors or you know they might not be you don't naturally associate them in the same way as someone who has, robbed a bank at gunpoint. But in some ways, they're doing damage to what you said, David, the consumers, and ultimately the consumers are paying the price for that. And I know companies often don't like to, if they have something that's happening or has happened to them fraudulently, a lot of times people don't like to talk about that. And I think if it was talked about more, actually, we might be in a better position to mitigate it because there would be more of an awareness. And instead of not just relying on the work that you and your company do, David, but also, there are these early signals of people just kind of saying, "Hey, this doesn't look right," or "Hey, this is what happened to me," and you being able to quickly jump in and kind of figure out what's going on. Is there a problem here? I think those things are really, really important. And I think that when we have more transparency, again, whether we are talking about data, I think transparency becomes just as critical in what we do so that people are aware and they're in a better position to protect themselves, both people and companies. I think that's critical.
Yep, agree completely.
Absolutely. Which kind of leads us into leadership. We need some better leadership out there, and AI for customer value. So, what would you kick us off with on this topic, Jacqueline?
So for me, value, right? Everyone if you're working at a company, particularly if it is one that is, traded in the marketplace, it's about profitable growth. Everyone knows that. Everyone is looking at it. How can I have more accretive growth overall, and how do I do that in a way where I'm also doing it more efficiently and more cost effectively? And I think that those things are really important. And I believe that people really want to use um, AI and other data analytics technology to ensure that they are looking at these opportunities and kind of stacking them against each other and really figuring out which ones are the ones that they should pursue. I do think that these patterns that we discover through AI can help us do that. And so I think that, to me, those are some of the most important benefits of using AI. And if you're not getting some value from it, whether it's, you're able to have people in your across your organizations work on things that are more impactful. AI, and just in terms of for people kind of feeling afraid about it, I do think there are jobs that automation has replaced over time, whether that's on an assembly line at an auto manufacturer or whether it's a toll taker. I remember when we had the first automatic tolls where you could see that someone who was taking tolls was at some point going to go away. I'm pretty sure that every municipality that has a bridge, that has a toll road, sees that this automation has reduced the fraud that they used to see, has had a more accurate accounting of what's happening across these toll roads and bridges. So there are some benefits. At the same time, with that job displacement, where do those workers go, and can they be retrained, reskilled to do other types of jobs that are actually going to be a broader and more meaningful over time? And so there will be, I think, more jobs that come out of what I would call not ethicists, but kind of how are we looking at these patterns? There's a person is always going to be needed to ensure that the patterns and the data that people are looking at makes sense. The machine is not going to be the thing that makes sense. It's not a human. Humans, their cognitive ability, their sensing abilities, and all of those things. And, you can't 100% replicate that in a machine. And so we will still need the people to do different jobs than maybe those jobs that are out there today. And so while I do believe that there will be roles that will be obviously replaced, those critical roles will be kind of how do we have responsible leaders that lead us and do the right thing for us as a society around the work that will be done for AI. I think that will be critical. And so we'll be, going back to what we said at the top of the hour, the trust will have to start there. And it starts with those relationships, those human relationships, and that's not a machine.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. And Jesse, you may recall, and hope maybe you recall who it was, because I'm thinking and trying to remember who it was, but somebody on our show once assimilated this AI era that we're in to the Industrial Revolution,
Mhm.
and I think that's it's a good example where I think then a lot of people were concerned that machines were going to take over jobs of people and people wouldn't be needed, but obviously new jobs for people were created, and I think we're in the same position. AI will improve processes, it will improve productivity, it will improve performance, we'll do a lot of things, but it will also create more jobs at the same time. And so I think that overall we're going to see a lot of new types of value that are created, getting back to the topic, but I think we'll also see new types of jobs that are created as well, and probably have already seen some of that happening.
For sure.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, let's move into our last topic, Jacqueline. And this is something we ask all of our guests on deconstructing data, which is, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack?
My iPhone.
Good one.
I remember, and this is this is so dating me, but it's so true. I remember when, um, and this is when I was actually working at Oracle. And one day we were in the office, and it was Safra and I, and Safra's obviously, she's the CEO of Oracle now, but we were in the office, and everyone's BlackBerry was going off, and you could, it was like the thing, and you could, everyone was getting their email, and it was like, and everyone was like, kind of on their little device. And, it was quote, Crackberry. And and I just remember having those conversations and just thinking about like, oh my God, this is the best thing since sliced bread. We're getting our all of our emails and all of our this and all of everything. And when I think about what do I use 100% every day for everything that I do, and you kind of move from when the when there wasn't what we now call the today smartphone, um, is the fact that we have this thing that is the smartphone, which allows us connectivity to almost anything that we need in our daily lives, whether it's a schedule, whether it's your work email, whether it's your doctor's online portal, whether it's, whatever it is, buying movie tickets, ordering your Five Guys, it doesn't matter. It is a mechanism and a portal. And with that, um the connectivity to all your other devices, and just that convenience is just really important to me. I'm sure some people have come in here and said, my ABC SaaS application or my XYZ other kind of products that are kind of your B2B tech stacks. When I think about what is the tool that I use every single day, multiple times a day, to do everything that I need to do, which is, and also communicating with my 85-year-old mother, it is my iPhone. And the fact that my 85-year-old mother is this avid texter, because I guess her grandkids, who are Gen Z, they're kind of like, that's how they communicate. So my mom is like, she gets it, and that's how she communicates with them. So now she sends text to everyone. So I just think about that tool, the connectivity of that tool, what it's been able to kind of allow me to do as a person day to day. And that's just kind of how I think about, like, what is the thing that I think enables me most on a day-to-day basis throughout the day, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a great example.
100%. Yeah, it changed the world. It revolutionized everything. And, I'm surprised no one's ever mentioned their smartphone on here as part of their tech stack. That was a really great one.
Clearly, they're not playing as much solitaire as I do.
You're right.
All the word games. I've got all the word games on my phone, and it's like the whole thing.
Yeah, it's recreational too.
It's recreational. It's like, it's like it's my breathing apps, the whole 9 yards. Like notes to myself. It just, it's my little,
Yeah, definitely.
I love that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And we still have 5 minutes, so I'm going to sneak in one of these post-topic questions, Jacqueline. So you were in finance before, which probably I would say might be one of the better backgrounds to have coming into marketing, right? Because we're really a blend of finance, science, art, and at the end of the day, we're marketers, so we're trying to help generate revenue. So I'm curious, if you could go back into time when you were first going from finance into marketing, what would be the number one piece of advice you would have given yourself?
The number one piece of advice that I would have given myself, I think that is to really trust yourself, and if you're prepared to make sure that you have that belief, because if you trust yourself when you're younger, you're more prone to be definitely more cautious. You know, you think that everyone around you has worked more years than you have, which at that time is true. But it doesn't mean that you don't have great ideas. And those great ideas are what I think moves, again, going back to moving society forward. I think those great ideas can move companies forward. I think those great ideas can move great departments forward. And I think now, as a CMO, I love when people share something with me that I hadn't necessarily thought about. I think about reverse mentoring all the time. Even when I mentor people, I feel like I'm always getting mentored back, because I don't think it's just 100%. Let me impart some wisdom to you. I feel like I'm getting as much out of that as they are. And I want people who are early in their career to trust that they have great ideas and to believe in themselves and like figure out a way to showcase that. I think that's critical.
Yeah, that is.
That's awesome. Yeah, the one thing I want to comment on that is that really resonated with me is the mentoring, because a lot of people don't realize the benefits that the mentor gets, as opposed to just the mentee. You know, a lot of people are thinking, oh, you know, mentoring, it's just going to take time out of my day, and I'm going to be, you know, have to, you know, spend time with this person, teaching them or whatever, or sharing my experiences with them or whatever. But you don't realize, as the, you know, going into it as the mentor, you get so much out of it. It's not just the mentee that walks away with value. The mentor walks away with value as well. And I never realized that until several years ago when I started mentoring. It's you know, it's a really enlightening situation, and never it never occurred to me how much value you get out of it as a mentor.
Yeah, I really feel enriched, and energized. I feel like I'm contributing in a different way. When you're in a leadership role, you're like, yes, that is doing your job. That is doing what you're supposed to do. But talking to other people who are just asking you questions. And I had one of my a woman that worked at the company, and she had written me an email, and she said, you know, you're on a board, and I really, at some point in my career, would love to, you know, be on a board or be considered for a board. What are the things that, you know, you think I need to do? And I'm like, I am so glad you asked me that now, as compared to the time when you think that you are, quote, board ready, because there's a lot of things that you need to be doing right now that will better position you, so when that time comes, you can be a better candidate, and have a higher consideration threshold for getting on a board. And we had an amazing talk, and she's like, oh, I'm so happy you shared that with me. This is great. And for me, I thought to myself, God, I wish someone had, you know, I kind of muddled my way through this process. I didn't have anyone that was like truly helping me. But the one thing that I do remember, there is a woman who's an attorney. She's a chief legal officer, and her name is Gina Ash. So if she hears this, she'll know. Gina said, she was like, you will be on a board. You will be on a board. Don't worry about it. And I was like, she believes in me. So if she's on a board, she already kind of knows what people are looking for. And that just gave me this spark of confidence that I just don't know that I would have already otherwise had. Even though I felt like I had enough to do it, it's always nice when someone affirms what you're thinking. And those words are just so meaningful to people. And so I would encourage people, it doesn't matter what level you are in an organization. I just encourage you to, you know, your encouragement to others is really, it is the thing that will make their day.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it could even, you know, change the world. I mean, look at you, that one lady, she shared that one acknowledgement with you, and it gave you the confidence to go forward. And thank goodness she did, because based on what I'm hearing from you, you are exactly the type of leader we need on the boards of these large companies. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. And then it allowed me to help someone else. So there is something about paying it forward. And I do believe in that. So.
Yeah. Well, that's really great. In closing, Jacqueline, would you like to tell listeners where they can find you if they want to reach out after the show?
Sure, they can find me on Teradata.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. You can, find me across most platforms. And please reach out to me and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love getting new connections and I love expanding my network. It has really been great, guys, being on the show.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you taking the time out to spend with us today. And we've had a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you both. And audience members, before we leave, we'd like to invite you to get powered by BDEX and discover how our best-in-class identity graph technology and Omni IQ will enable you to forge deeper connections with your audience and drive unprecedented engagement. So just imagine harnessing the power of AI to craft your audience that truly resonates with your brand, ensuring your marketing efforts hit the mark every time. Just connect with us to learn more about how BDEX can bring you closer to your marketing goals. So our team is eager to talk to you. You can visit bdex.com and click the Talk to an Expert button. For those of you watching on video, I'll drop our QR code. You can feel free to scan that. But talk to an expert, and we'd love to be able to help you. Also, for anyone curious about sponsoring Deconstructing Data, we are now accepting sponsorship opportunities, and we're just an email away. You can also email us if there's someone you think you would like to see on the show. Just reach out to us at info@bdex.com and share your qualitative data with us so we can make this better for you. And thank you again to our guest and our audience. We hope you all have a great week. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.